there goes a YouTube video. Get it? Get anybody? Anybody? No? No? Okay. In 1993, the world was bequeathed a new live-action video series on VHS. And it was called, well, it depends who you ask. I always called it There Goza, which seems to be the general, assumed name. But you could also call it Real Wheels, because it was mainly a vehicle-based sort of VHS type of deal. The series was geared towards young audiences, and the whole gimmick was that it featured a different type of vehicle in the title every single time. And thus each episode would focus on the jobs and duties that were associated with that particular vehicle as a way to educate kids on the world around them. And these kind of kids' shorts used to be all over the place. If anything, they're less common now, at least in terms of, like, the video market. For one thing, we don't use videotapes. There's DVDs and Blu-rays. But for two, I think most kids shows are streaming now. And again, most shows in general are. Like, things have changed a lot. But back in the day, when I was a child, we had to go to the store and we had to buy stuff to watch. And we had to stick it in a VHS player, and then we got to watch it. And then we had to rewind it, which took forever before we could watch it again. We couldn't just click back. You children are spoiled. You don't know what it was like. It was really hard. Anyway, the majority of the series features a man by the name of Dave Hood. And I say features, but I should really say it also is run by and written by and produced by and edited by. Really, Dave did everything when it came to this whole series. It was his baby.
Hi kids, I'm construction foreman Dave. I'm firefighter Dave. I'm pilot Dave. I'm truck driver Dave.
And I'm truck driver Becky.
I'm engineer Dave. I'm deputy Dave.
And I'm deputy Becky.
I had a lot of these VHSs as a kid, and I think they're, kind of related to what we do here now, since you guys probably are well aware at this point that the vast majority of what I do when it comes to history is vehicle history. I talk about a lot of different kinds of vehicles, especially trains. It's usually the trains. And among the many influences I can claim when it comes to what I do here, I think Dave Hood and There Goza deserves a bit of a mention. I've also seen it crop up a bit more often lately when it comes to people that watch my content, so I know I must be doing something right, as I must not be the only person who remembers these VHSs once existed, and that, they were really cool, actually. So, since we're entering November, and Lord knows I'm going to forget about Thanksgiving when we actually get there because I'm going to get too busy like I did last year and completely just blank on it, I figured I'd take the time to extend a warm thank you to Dave Hood and his awesome series by giving you a little bit of an overview of the whole thing. I thought about a few different ways I could do this. I mean, I guess I could do a deep dive into every single episode, but there's 23 of those and we don't got time for that. You guys know I don't usually cover media on this channel because it's not what we do here. But I'm making an exception this time because I feel like a lot of it deeply relates to what we do here, and it's relevant to, the whole theming and kind of everything. Also, I just really wanted to talk about it. Okay, so I guess what I'll do is I'll give you an overview of the whole series, going episode by episode, but not going too in-depth, because I don't want to spoil too much, since, I would like you to watch it yourself if you want to, or maybe you're young enough, or, show it to your own kids, and B, again, I just don't really have time to go too in-depth with each and every individual episode, but I think I can give you enough of a taste for you to understand why Dave is awesome. Seriously, I'm not joking. I love this guy. He is the best at what he does, and that is getting really excited about every conceivable vehicle you can think of.
Fuel goes into the engine, it explodes, driving the pistons up and down, boom, 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 boom. That power turns a shaft that goes into the gearbox, which is right down there.
The dude can take even the most mundane jobs and make them seem ridiculously awesome. He has a certain kind of energy about him. He gets your attention, he draws you in and makes you want to learn because it's like, oh, well, this guy's excited. I should be excited too. The very first episode was There Goes a Fire Truck, which I actually didn't even know was the first, as I'm pretty sure I definitely didn't see this one first. But then again, back in the day when you were purchasing stuff on VHS, it was really easy to watch this stuff out of order. And when it comes to Real Wheels, it's not really relevant, like, when it comes to the order of things. Like, it really doesn't change anything, because each one is standalone, based off a certain vehicle. I didn't even see the entire series as a kid, so you know. In any event, There Goes a Fire Truck is exactly what it sounds like. It's about fire trucks, but more intrinsically the operation of a fire station and what goes into being a firefighter. I feel like compared to the later part of the series, Dave takes a bit more of a back seat, while actual firefighters give him proper instruction and explain why they do things a certain way and what their job really entails. Admittedly, it's probably a better way to handle it, only because, I mean, firefighting is a very serious job, and you want to make sure that kids have the proper information, and the firefighters do a really good job of explaining it.
Therefore, we have to get along. This is my second family. I have a family at home, and I have a family in the fire service.
In this particular episode, Dave is mostly there for comedic relief.
Whoops. I guess I forgot to shut off the valve.
He does do some narration explaining things at times as well, and a lot of the information is actually very good when it comes to understanding what firefighters do. So overall, it's a strong start for the whole series. Episode 2 is There Goes a Bulldozer, in which Dave takes a bit more center stage.
Hi kids, I'm construction foreman Dave. Well, I'm not really a construction foreman, but the real construction workers told me that I could pretend for a day so that you and I can learn about construction sites, demolition sites, and how all this big equipment works.
He doesn't conduct as many interviews this time, rather explains a lot of it himself. There's plenty of comedy, but also plenty of instruction, particularly on safety. Since we're dealing with bulldozers, well, first of all, they extend that to pretty much every conceivable piece of construction equipment, but also they stress how dangerous it can be to be in a construction site and that it's not a playground, and that you have to wear a hard hat and have permission to be there, which is a really good message for kids. Though I do concede this is kind of the point in the series where some of the comedy bits are, like, a little darker in retrospect than I think they were meant to be.
Oh! I shouldn't have done that!
Dave, my homie, I think you just crushed like 24 construction workers underneath all that rubble. It's just not as funny when you think about it that way. Of course, no, he didn't actually do that, but you know what I mean. This is also the first episode that introduces a running theme with Dave, where he likes to rush things, and he always wants to play with the big toys before he does anything else. But the problem, as is repeatedly explained to him, regardless of what episode this particular lesson appears in, is that in order to get to the big toys, you have to play with the small ones first, and you have to learn and build your way up. You can't just jump on a full-size bulldozer and expect to know what you're doing. This is another pretty good lesson for kids, and I'm kind of glad it was so consistent over the series as a whole. Next up is There Goes an Airplane, which is a really great one, except, well, there's a couple of things that we should probably know about it. For one thing, Dave's explanation for how wings work and why planes fly is, for lack of a better word, wrong.
If you notice, the bottom of the wing is fairly straight, but the top portion is rather curved. Now, what that does when the wind flows over the wing is it forces the air on top of the wing to go faster than the air on the bottom. It has further to travel. That creates a suction which lifts the airplane into the air.
He goes into detail about the whole air underneath the wing moving slower than the air on top of it because it has further to travel, which is just not how that works. No, that is a very common misconception. But that's how I'm going to defend Dave, is that a lot of people, even to this day, think that's how it works, and no, that's not the way a wing works in any way. So, yeah, there is that. That's kind of wrong, unfortunately. Additionally, this is also the first episode where they start really getting into military technology, because they show military aircraft and actually go on the USS Kitty Hawk to film. Really? And, you know, I don't have an issue with this. I just want to stress that. I don't. Could anyone get away with this in the modern day, though? Like, I feel like if there was any children's show in this day and age that showed off anything military-based, Twitter would go from 0 to 100 on their moral high horse, and just, like, it would just be yet another controversy that didn't need to be a controversy. Like, I, again, don't have an issue with this. I watched it as a kid. It's okay for kids to learn that the military exists. Some kids have military parents. They know about it already. okay? I'm just saying, in retrospect, this is just something that I didn't really think of as weird as a kid, but in the modern day, I just can't see it ever happening like this. After There Goes an Airplane, we're also jumping to the one that I think everyone's been waiting for. This is the one I've seen brought up the most, which is There Goes a Train. And of course, you're probably thinking this is my favorite episode. You'd be wrong. Now, I don't dislike it, but I do think it's kind of mid overall, like it's just average. Because overall, the information given is great. It gives you the basics of railroad safety and how you should stay off the tracks. They go through and show you Amtrak as well as the Santa Fe rail yard. I mean, it's pretty good. Handled really well until they get to a heritage museum. The episode ends with a Wild West style sequence where Dave has to climb on top of a train and get to the front because they can't get a hold of the driver and there's a car on the tracks. Which is really cool and all. It's still a really good episode. I just didn't like it as much as Airplane, for example. Next up is There Goes a Police Car, and this is where we introduce another host.
Hi, kids. I'm Deputy Dave.
And I'm Deputy Becky, but we're not real police officers.
Because girls can enjoy vehicles too. That's okay. And I like Becky. She compliments Dave well, because they're both, well, honestly, kind of the same person. Like, they both seem to think they always know everything, and yet they're both equally inept in their own unique ways.
247, David! That's us! Oh, get it, it's an emergency! Go, answer the thing, answer the thing!
I can't.
Dave! No, that's the monitor. Okay, hold on. I got it. Turn that off. Deputy
can't
Becky
get it off.
and Deputy David in pursuit. Thank you.
Thank you. You don't say thank you. You're supposed to be 10-4 or something.
Get going!
You're supposed to say
David,
10-4 or
that's
something.
It. I'm taking over.
Also, there goes a police car. Yet another thing Twitter would complain about. This is actually a really good episode, though, going into detail about the finer points of law enforcement and what the police force does to protect our communities. It's set up in a bit more of a creative way, too, in that Dave and Becky keep having to go through different jobs in the police force to try to redeem themselves, and they keep messing it up, but it also means that you get to see all sorts of different things the police do, and they do a lot.
Dave, how are we going to get out of here?
But you have a key.
No, I don't have the key. What do you mean I have the key?
I thought you had...
Of course I don't have the key. We're not even real deputies, and you think I'm going to have the key?
Call some officer.
This episode also introduces one of my favorite characters in the whole series, who I'm pretty sure only shows up twice, and I swear he's not even an actor. He must be like the key grip they just pulled in front of the camera for a bit scene, because this dude's overacting is legendary.
Wait, what are you doing? What are you doing? Police!
I got you!
Police!
I got him!
Help!
I got him here! I got him!
Help!
Okay, don't you stop!
Help!
Don't you run! I got you! The bad guys! I got the bad guys! I got him!
Police!
I got him!
Police!
I got him!
Oh, police! Help!
I got him!
Help!
Deputy Dave!
you're under
Deputy
arrest.
Dave! This is Deputy Becky! This is Deputy
Don't
Becky!
go,
You
police.
got the wrong guy! Repeat, you got the wrong guy!
What do you mean the wrong guy? Jeez. I'm sorry.
You bumbling
I'm sorry,
fool.
sir. I'm sorry.
Oh,
It won't happen again. I'm
Leave me
sorry.
alone!
Everybody makes a mistake once in a while. I'm sorry,
I'm
sir.
calling the chief of police.
Don't do that. Please don't do that. I'm really sorry. Listen, you look great. I'm sorry. Everything's okay. Here's your garbage bag.
Look what you've done!
Here's your garbage back. You can.
I don't want my
Everything's
garbage.
fine.
I don't know why, it never fails to make me at least chuckle, okay? It's a pretty fun episode, and a great introduction for Becky here. Next up is There Goes a Truck. Just a truck. Regular old trucks. Well, semi-trucks. Another good dynamic between Dave and Becky is established here, since the two can't agree on directions.
What are you talking about?
Upside
wrong
down.
direction.
I had the map.
The map upside down.
Yes, I thought we were going north, but we were going south, and we. Oh my gosh, Dave, we're about 100
Becky?
miles out of the way.
Becky, which way is north?
What do you mean, which way is north? It's up.
Up.
Everybody knows that north is up. Listen, I don't see what the big deal is. I mean, after all, what did
We
you
were on
do?
schedule. We were on schedule. Now, how far off the main highway are
All
we?
right, big trucker Dave. What about the time you were in the aerial bucket truck? Ha ha ha.
Oh.
As if this is a big deal.
You had to bring that
Well,
up, huh?
well.
But it really goes into detail about being a trucker, and what it takes to take care of a big rig. It's not just about driving, you gotta maintain them too. I remember thinking this episode was actually really interesting as a kid because I learned a lot. Following this, there's There Goes a Boat, which is another fantastic episode. Seriously, There Goes a Boat is actually one of the best ones you could watch. The information is great. They go to many different kinds of ships on the open water, including nuclear submarines? What? No, seriously, they get the Navy's permission to film, at least in one part, of a nuclear submarine, namely the missile tube room, which, again, what? Are there nuclear missiles in those tubes when they're filming? Can we talk about that? I thought it was really cool as a kid to see the inside of a nuclear submarine, but I just love how Dave mentions that they can't even show you certain parts of it. Like, I only thought that was cool as a kid, but as an adult, I'm like, really? They don't want you to film the nuclear reactor? Why? I can't imagine why that would be a security risk or anything. You know, it's just one of those things. But they go into civilian ships too. It's a really, really, really good one. Definitely a highlight of the series. Following that is There Goes a Spaceship. I feel like we skipped a few vehicles. We haven't talked about cars yet. I mean, I'm not complaining. They go to the Kennedy Space Center and talk all about spaceships, telling us in the 90s how we too could grow up to be astronauts and go to the moon. So far, no 90s kid has realized that particular dream, but maybe someday. It's another fine episode. I think they might have struggled with showing us certain things. I mean, they obviously show the space shuttle as well as old footage of the moon and things of that nature as well as certain rockets. It's cool and all, but there's only so many spaceships out there, you know? Like there's rockets and there's the space shuttle, and in the 90s that was about it. I mean, there's only so much they could do. Following this, we have There Goes a Race Car, which, yeah, at this point you might see where this is going. It's all about race cars and racing, and different kinds of race cars, sometimes racing trucks and demolition derbies and things like that. It's another really fun episode. And episode 10 is the only one that isn't called There Goes. It's called Here Comes, a roller coaster. Now, as weird as the title sounds, that sounds pretty cool. You could go into detail about, like, the different safety features of roller coasters, or the physics of how they go around the loops and stuff like that, or, you know, like, how they have, you know, like multiple wheels to, you know, in case one breaks, they still have other wheels, so they stay on the rails and things like that. And none of that happens at any point during this episode. This is, by and large, the worst episode in the entire series, and I even thought that as a kid. It's not bad on its own merits, I suppose, but when you compare it to the rest of the series, it stands out like a sore thumb. It is just brutally... It's an advertisement for Six Flags. Basically, that's what it is. Like, they show you all different kinds of roller coasters and rides in the Six Flags theme park, which, great. You gonna tell us how they work, Dave? No. This is all a dream sequence for one, because the whole story is that Dave's son is trying to get him to take him to Six Flags because he won tickets and Dave's too busy working, and this whole time... the dream version of Dave's son is explaining to him in Dave's dream why Six Flags is totally awesome. But at no point during this explanation of totally awesome do they explain the intricate physics of building a safe roller coaster or, you know, different kinds of methods. There's no behind the scenes, there's nothing like that. It's literally just Dave walking around Six Flags. That's the whole thing. So it reads more as an advertisement for the park rather than an actual explanation of any of the science here, so it completely fails as an educational tool because it's really not. It's just showing kids how cool Six Flags is. Which, I mean, okay, great, but you could have done that and still given them some education out of this, but this is the one episode throughout the entire series that never does that at any point, thus putting it very low in my recommendation list. Like, if you want to share this series with your kids, maybe just skip on Roller Coaster. Nothing of value is really lost, if I'm being brutally honest. However, they do follow it up with There Goes a Monster Truck, and hey, it's monster trucks. Monster trucks are cool, crushing cars and all that. This one really hampers home the impatience of Dave, since he really wants to drive a monster truck, but he has to start with smaller trucks before he gets to the monster truck. And also, there's a part of the plot that I still can't get over, and I know that the whole series is like this, where it's, it's for kids, so it doesn't really matter too much. So Dave and Becky are tasked with taking the monster truck to the big show, right? Okay, great. Well, they run out of gas in the middle of the desert. How they even got there, I don't even know. Do highways not exist in California? Like, what's the deal? But beyond that, their first solution to this problem is to get in the monster truck and take that through the desert to the show, which I'm pretty sure you can't drive that on the inner city streets. Like, I don't think that's gonna work. Like, at a certain point you will have to stop. Maybe out here in the middle of nowhere it's fine, but then they ingeniously just hit a hill and the monster truck breaks down too. So they start walking, and they get there, and they explain to the manager that they just left the truck in the middle of the desert and it's not there. And instead of, like, suing them for the massive amount of money they lost by not being at the show, you just make them work in the mud pit? Like, there's no way that that would ever happen. Like, there's so much more that would go into this in the real world. But I'm thinking too much about a kid's program. This is still a really good episode either way, especially if your kid likes monster trucks. Episode 12 is There Goes a Motorcycle, which is actually a really solid episode because it goes into the history of motorcycles and when the first one was made and all that. I really like it, but I also have a personal grudge against this particular episode, not because of anything wrong with it necessarily. This is the tape. Mind you, I'm a 90s kid, and of the episodes of the series that I actually had, I had them all on VHS. And anyone who's utilized a VHS player to any significant extent knows that there's always one tape that the VHS player decides to destroy. It was just a thing that happened. Every so often. VHS players were, fairly reliable for the most part, but sometimes things went wrong. And in There Goes a Motorcycle's case, my parents' VHS player destroyed this tape, to the point that it was literally unwatchable. I couldn't watch it anymore after that. And as a result, I only got to see it a few times as a kid. Like, I know it happened when I was like 6, but I'm still mad about it to this day. Like, I hate that VHS player. It broke my tape. But the episode itself is still very good, so, hey. Then there's There Goes a Helicopter. This is my favorite one. There Goes a Helicopter is fantastic as an episode. It's got comedy, it's got information, it's got a whole bunch of different types of helicopters. It features the Coast Guard, as well as the Marines, and the Cobra attack helicopter. Really pulling out all the stops here, aren't we, Dave? Dave and Becky are on a rescue mission this time, so it's kind of serious, but it's still played up for laughs in a little bit of a way. If you're interested in all in this whole series, and you can only watch one episode, make it There Goes a Helicopter. You will not regret it. This is definitely the ideal one. It has perfect balance of comedy, entertainment, and education that this series was so good at. But again, I'm bringing up the question of this whole putting military in this series thing. I mean, again, I don't have a problem with it. Like, I was thinking of other ways you could do it and go, like, really far with it, and now I'm thinking of, like, a German version of this series. Welcome, children! I am Hans, and welcome to There Goes a Panzerkampfwagen! Sir, how did the treads work? We ask the questions! The next episode is There Goes Santa Claus? What? That's not a vehicle at all! That's Santa! He can't... What? This is a weird one. Admittedly, it's a lot better than its name would imply. Yeah, it is a Christmas special episode, but Dave does take the time to go into some detail about some snow-based vehicles, which is really cool. But it's also a flashback episode, where he and Becky reminisce about, like, other things they've done in past episodes, which is always cheating, and I know why they do it. It's because of budgets and things like that, and I get it. I know why it's done. It's just frustrating every time it happens. So, this episode's on the weak side, but it's not a total waste. The use of flashback footage isn't necessarily egregious, so, you could do worse. Episode 15 is There Goes a mail truck. This is where we're gonna start having a lot of different trucks, just so we're clear. I think this was about the time in the series where they started scraping the bottom of the barrel in terms of different vehicle ideas to make episodes about. So they went with the more mundane end of things. They got all the exciting monster trucks out of the way already. Now it's time for the mail. But this is Dave and Becky. And they can make anything seem exciting. And this episode is a really great tool for teaching kids how the mail system actually works. Like, where does the mail go after you send it? These are things that kids ask questions about, and they have a decent explanation about that. So overall, this is actually a pretty good watch. It just feels weird to go from monster trucks and motorcycles and helicopters to the mail truck, you know? Episode 16 is There Goes a Rescue Vehicle? Which is really vague. What does that even mean? Is the Paw Patrol gonna show up? Like, what do you mean? Well, what they actually mean is ambulance, basically. Why they didn't just call it There Goes an Ambulance, I will never know. But this is another perfectly reasonable episode, explaining how paramedics do their job and what kinds of vehicles they use. So hey, no complaints here. Of course, they follow it up with There Goes a Garbage Truck. Again, another different kind of truck. Like, I let fire truck pass, because that's a very specialized truck, and I mean, I guess garbage trucks are too, but the garbage guys, really? We doing this? Admittedly, much like mail truck, it is pretty interesting to see where the garbage goes, and there's a message about recycling and reusing and, you know, conservation and all that, so I mean, it's another 90s Save the Earth program, but if you like big trucks, you know, teaching you how to be a garbage man, I mean, hey, garbage men, you know, shouldn't be sneered at. They take away our disgusting trash, and they should be paid well for that. You know, it's not an invalid career path. I'm just saying. It's a fair job. That's what you want to do. But unfortunately, this is actually the last episode where Becky appears. From this point on, she's no longer in it. I'm not sure if they just couldn't afford to pay the actress, or if she had other priorities, or really why she left. But it's really unfortunate because her dynamic with Dave was one of the high points of the series, and him doing it on his own, I mean, I'm sure he can handle it. And we love Dave. You know, it should be fine. No big deal. We still have Dave. As long as we have Dave, there won't be any issues.
Hi, kids. I'm dump truck driver Dave.
You're not Dave. Imposter! You're not Dave! Who was that? That's not Dave. Don't you lie to me. Where did you take Dave? What have you done with him?
Well, actually, I'm not a real dump truck driver, but hopefully they'll let me pretend today.
What do you mean you're hoping? Our Dave always got permission before he started filming. Who are you? Well, this is Dave Sidoni, who is also conveniently named Dave, even in real life, apparently? Yeah, I know. They actually got someone else who's also named Dave, and they replaced our Dave. Even though this is our Dave's production, like, this is still his, why did they replace him as host? Why did he replace himself as host? Is this so low budget that he couldn't afford to pay himself? Also, I'm sorry, I was so focused on the fact that we have been betrayed and we've had our Dave replaced that this episode is called There Goes a Dump Truck, which we've already covered regular trucks. That's not a, how did you, and you're really pushing it with the truck thing, is what I'm trying to say. I mean, I guess from an information perspective, if you like dump trucks, you know, and certain industrial applications, it's fine. But I can only assume that because Becky left, they didn't want to just go down to solo regular days, so they just replaced both of them, thinking that would be better. But it ain't, because, like, if a child has been watching the series this whole time, they're gonna get attached to regular Dave because he's been there the whole time. If you replace him with this guy, who's also calling himself Dave, not only is that gonna be disappointing, but also fiercely confusing. And I'm not saying Sidoni's a bad host. He's still got plenty of energy, he handles the job well, but he's not our Dave. And I don't like change. I didn't as a kid, definitely. Ask my mother. Unfortunately, we better get a little bit used to Imposter Dave over here because he's with us for this and the next 2 episodes. But episode 19 is a much stronger episode than we've gotten in a while, as it is called There Goes a Tractor. Farm tractors, to be precise, which is pretty cool since this is a kind of vehicle like we haven't really touched at all. It goes into what it's like working on a farm and what kinds of different tractors they use. People don't always know, especially when they're kids who haven't lived on a farm, how many different kinds of tractors there are actually. So, for the most part, this is actually a pretty decent episode, despite Imposter Dave's looming presence. But then they follow it up with There Goes a Farm Truck, which... Okay, look, I'm over the truck thing, and a farm truck, you know that isn't any different from a... Okay, in fairness, they go into detail about the differences between regular trucks and farm trucks, mainly in terms of the products they move. Because a farm truck is moving perishables, so there's different restrictions involved, and there's a different methodology behind loading and unloading and everything like that. So they do get away with it, but what they really get away with is minimizing the budget for both these episodes because they were shot in the same place, and I'm pretty sure at the same time. It's just a guess, but they're the only episodes in the series that are that similar, so I can only guess that they handled it all together and just kind of released them both, which is fair. Again, this series was never very high budget, so I understand the need to do that. I just think Farm Truck was really pushing it at this point. But fortunately, good news, this is the last time we have to deal with this imposter, because next up, there goes a bus, which is still kind of a form of a truck, isn't it? It's different enough. We'll take it. We'll take the bus. We'll take the bus. We get Dave! Dave, I was very worried about you. Are you okay? Were you kidnapped? Did we have to call the police? Everyone's favorite Dave, the real Dave, the only real Dave, is back. And it makes for a pretty good episode since we're talking about buses. Some of you may like buses. I don't really care for buses myself. Also, this is one of the episodes I didn't see as a kid. That and pretty much all the Imposter Dave episodes. Because by this point, this was 2002. I was 12, going on 13 years old. I was growing out of these kinds of films at the time. I was entering my angsty teenage years. Not to be confused with my angsty adult years that I still remain in to this day. And, you know, watching the kiddie shows, you know, I was too cool for that because I was a mature teenager, because we all go through that phase at one point or another. The point is, I didn't see this particular episode as a kid, so I didn't see Dave's epic return, but then again, I also was spared his loss in the first place, so hey, I just wanted to make that clear that, you know, this is a fine episode, but it's not really something I can give you any childhood nostalgia about, because I wasn't there for it. But it is generally favored by most of the limited fan base this series has, just because of Dave's return, even if he's still without Becky, who doesn't appear for the rest of the series at all, unfortunately. Okay, you guys, I need to tell you something. This is very important to me. I want you to know this. The Panzerkampfwagen joke I told earlier. Okay. I want you to understand. I hope you like that joke. I like that joke. I thought it was funny, that's why I still kept it in. But I wrote that joke before I finished doing research on this series and realized how many episodes there were that I hadn't seen as a kid. I was still going through this and wanting to do this based off of the episodes I had seen, not realizing that there were quite a few more that I had never seen. In any event, but, the Panzerkampfwagen joke was obviously meant to be ridiculous and overzealous because they'd never, really do a kid's, educational film about an actual tank. That would be, there's no way they did, There Goes a Tank! I just wanted to let you guys know that I wrote that joke before I knew that film existed. I didn't know about this. But yes, indeed, in the second to last episode, Dave shows off the M1A1 to us kids, all to see. And, you might be able to weasel out of showing, fighter jets, because those are fun, in terms of military tech in the modern day. There's no way
It allows it to go just
you
about
could
anywhere.
make a
TV
kids
show,
program showing off a tank and not have Twitter cry about it. That would be
Like you
impossible.
have on your bicycle.
But this is a great episode, though. Dave is in full form. It is awesome to see a tank like this up close. He's on an actual Marine Corps base for this. Like, this is a really, really good show. But I just can't believe it even happened, honestly, is really where I'm at with it. Also, it contains this line.
Baby, this is beautiful. It's so big, too. It's an M1A1. I know all about it because I read about it on the internet.
Which is one of those lines that has only gotten funnier as time has gone on. I don't know if Dave realized how spot on he was with this one. That was good. That was good. But like I said, that's the second to last one. And honestly, the series kind of ends on a bit of a mediocre note. The last episode is There Goes a Rescue Hero, which, much like Santa Claus, is not a vehicle, and it features mostly fire trucks, which... Wait, that's how the series started. Are we going full circle with it? Like, what's happening here? I mean, they talk about some other stuff, too, but for the most part, it's, again, about fire trucks. Like, it's about, you know, rescue heroes and, you know, people who do that job, like paramedics, which we've also talked about, and police officers, which we've also talked about. Really, I think Dave ran out of vehicles to deal with, you know, within the span of reasonability, so this is kind of where the series ends, unfortunately. But that's 23 episodes, and most of which are very good. There were only a handful in the series that I wouldn't recommend. In fact, the only one I would outright say don't bother with is Roller Coaster. Everything else was alright for the most part, and the series actually wound up doing fairly well for such a, you know, low-budget program. It won a few awards, and Dave even wound up doing a live tour for a few years. And, I mean, that's pretty impressive, all things considered. It's probably the thing he's best known for doing, and some people my age will even recognize him because they watched these films when they were young. He's kind of a more obscure, like, Mr. Rogers, except instead of, you know, friendship and stuff, it's, tanks are cool, I guess. But I still really like this series, and it's probably a big part of why I am so focused on vehicle history in my adult life. I liked watching these as a kid, and I liked looking into this stuff, and I learned more. I learned more about the stuff as I grew up, and now I have a whole YouTube channel about this. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, for this Thanksgiving holiday season, thank you, Dave, for bringing us solid education and entertainment at the same time. So I'm sure there's a lot of people in my generation that really appreciate you, my guy. And with that, a special thank you to all my underwater train finders, Some Dude 267, Orange Glass, Benjamin Owens, Panzer Kitsune 131-232, Josh Johnson, Anzac A1, Arthur Roy, Tommy Rossini, Lord Captain Von Thrust III, Brian, Jack Carson's Aurora Videos, Hayden DeGro, Lord Off 444, Mark Holding, Murder Drone Stall, A Person 723, DM Tribal Typhoon, Alfonso Lapuche, Royal Hunter 2860, Icer for 1405, Charles Kwiatkowski, Matthew Wolf, Mr. Sleepy Matt Weaver, Alaric Jaspers, Tom Redline, S Productions 8104, Hannah Bird, Hendrick Motorsports Fan 5, Wheeljack 8401, Rescues Greyhounds, The Baxter, Caleb Crosswhite, Ohio Trucker 1, Joshua Long, Andrew Bowen, Prez Drenton, and Bradley Bowden. Till next time, this is Darkness, individual fun. Farewell.